Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 TechPoint and Indiana Technology and Innovation Association Legislative Update event. My name is Michael Angelier, President and CEO of TechPoint.
And I'm Jennifer Hollowell, the Executive Director of the Indiana Technology and Innovation Association, or ITIA. We're excited to see high participation again this year. I think it's a great sign of the level of interest of our members and what's upcoming in the state legislative session in January, and also appreciate all the legislators who are joining us to hear about what's important to our members. So thank you all for tuning in.
Before we dive right into our program and the presentations today, we'd like to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsor for today's legislative update, AT&T. And joining us from AT&T is a leader who's been helping to keep Indiana on the leading edge of telecommunications and tech innovation since really the first telecom deregulation days in the 1990s. He's also a former Boone County Councilor and former Indianapolis City County Councilor. So he brings a variety of perspectives and experiences to the table. It's my pleasure to bring in Bill Swords. Thank you for your support, Bill.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jen. Welcome to all of you. And on behalf of our over 3,000 employees in Indiana, AT&T's proud to help sponsor the event and bring together some really talented legislators to talk about important technology and innovation issues in Indiana. Our mission at AT&T is really about connecting Hoosiers and helping bridge the digital divide. In fact, over the last 3 years, AT&T has invested over $1 billion in our wired and wireless networks in Indiana. In fact, just last week, we announced a pretty significant deal down around Evansville. We announced a $40 million project with Vanderburgh County to bring fiber to almost every home, business, and farm in the entire unincorporated area of the county. And this is a project that couldn't have been done absent some government involvement. Many of us know that there's millions or billions of dollars that are starting to flow now for infrastructure, including digital infrastructure. And so whether it's local ARP money that helped us do this project in Vanderburgh County, or state next level money, or more to come soon, hopefully, with respect to the federal infrastructure bill, just know we're actively talking to local governments all around the state about continuing our mission of trying to connect Hoosiers all across the state. So with that, thanks for the opportunity. We look forward to continuing to be an active participant in technology and innovation policy in Indiana, and appreciate the opportunity. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you again, Bill. All right, let me set the stage for how the event's going to flow. I have the results of some recent research about the tech industry that I'll share as a 10 or so minute state of tech update. And then Jennifer, I'll hand it back over to Jennifer, and she will share the policy priorities promoted this year on the legislative agenda. And then we have 4 leaders in the legislature, as Bill referenced, that will briefly highlight their priorities and expectations for this upcoming legislative session. Everyone's muted other than our speaker. So if you have any questions while people are presenting or during the specific Q&A times, please drop them in the chat. And for the best viewing experience, make sure you have chosen speaker view in the top right corner of your screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Anna, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see my screen?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first off, for some of you may not be that familiar with TechPoint, so I'll just give you a brief overview. TechPoint is a mission-driven nonprofit started by the tech industry years ago to be the nucleus of the tech industry, the tech community, and then a growth platform to help it grow and thrive here in Indiana. Our members are some of the largest tech employers, high promise startup and scale up stage companies doing really important technology and talent development, and then also education providers, especially universities, that really run a range of types of companies, from tech product to tech service to tech infrastructure, and then even tech enabled companies, as well as technology continues to expand into most every industry, as well as the education providers that I referenced as well. And to put some faces with names, this is the TechPoint Executive Committee. You can see representing a range of different companies, different sizes and types of companies. And it's also, TechPoint is part of the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership. So for those of you that are familiar, we are part of a family of growth initiatives focused on all of the important industries in Indiana, including ag, life sciences, energy, manufacturing, and then a horizontal workforce initiative as well. But what binds us together is a shared mission to create a sustainable prosperity and quality of life for our citizens, and for future generations. One of the things we do is to help provide a really objective source of intel, but we also operate a variety of programs that grow this tech ecosystem and support tech employers here. The Mira Awards is one of those. This is the Oscars of Tech in Indiana. So many of you are probably familiar, hopefully have attended. If not, we'd invite you to for coming up this spring in April. This is where we crown the successes from across companies and individuals from across our tech community and across our state every year. We operate talent programs as well, like the Extern program that has now attracted over 10,000 applicants from, this has 49 states. I'm glad to announce we have since attracted an applicant from North Dakota. So we now can say all 50 states. Into these types of roles, examples of these roles that span both technical and business across all of our tech employers, and attract them here through a top-notch program involving where we recruit this talent, match them with employers, provide free housing. We lease 3 apartment buildings for them to live in, and then provide professional development and a summer experience. All told, we brought over 1,000 of them here to Indiana to work in over 150 different companies. And what's really cool is that when they come in, only a quarter of these really very talented college students that are coming here to start as interns say that they're likely to stay here after graduation, but after the program, 3/4 of them, when offered a job, accept it. So one example of how we're helping to bolster the talent pipeline here. We also invest a lot into attracting venture capital firms to come here as well through something called VC speed dating, to which we brought 86 VC firms from 23 states for over 1,200 meetings with 150 Indiana companies over the years. And just for context, TechPoint doesn't lobby or make PAC investments. And that's why ITIA and TechPoint, that's why ITIA exists, and also why TechPoint and ITIA do this together, because we know that by working in collaboration with each other, that we can build the tech community, the tech ecosystem, both programmatically and from a policy standpoint that our state and our citizens need. Okay, now I'm going to shift gears and talk about some of this latest research, these latest insights that we've found. One, we wanted to understand, what is the tech industry in Indiana and what impact does it have? It's a $51 billion industry annually. Its impact to GDP. It employs over 184,000 people across the state. And you can see here that ranges from people who actually work in the tech industry, whether they are in kind of tech skilled or business skilled roles, as well as the people who work in tech skilled roles, tech jobs, inside other employers, whether those are hospitals or manufacturing firms, life sciences companies, ag firms, all around the state. And over the last decade, 1 in 10 new jobs added to the workforce has been a job in the tech workforce. So it's one of our fastest growing, biggest contributors to our tech workforce over the last decade as well. VC investments have been a major trend. We actually have set new records this year, and in the last 3 years, we've now crossed $1 billion of venture capital invested into Indiana tech companies. Over $500 million of that already coming this year, and obviously we're not even to the end of the year yet. On a typical year, 2/3 to 3/4 of the venture capital deals in the state are investments into tech companies. So one shout out for our legislative friends that are on the phone. A big thank you to those of you who backed many of the critical venture capital instruments that have really supported our high growth companies across the state, the VCI tax credit, next level fund, et cetera. Those are important instruments. So thank you for those of you that have backed those programs. We're seeing them bear fruit in the growth of Indiana growth stage companies. Another trend has been companies that are expanding and or relocating to Indiana. JobVite is an example of that. You'll see referenced in this and several of the other companies referenced here. Talent, is the most important ingredient and the reason for their making a move. Obviously, business fundamentals and cost of doing business are a factor as well. JobVite was a Bay Area company that ended up not only adding an office here and expanding, but ultimately relocating their headquarters. Terminus, another example, initially headquartered in Atlanta, that added a headquarters here in Indianapolis as well. Both of those companies that acquired Indiana companies and begot their presence here. Here are a few other examples as well. As I referenced, they're all come down to talent. And so one of the things coming out of this analysis that surfaced were that we need to focus in 3 key areas. One of them, no surprise, talent and workforce development, startup and scale up growth being the other, because young companies are, they generate the lion's share of the net new jobs in the US economy. Kaufman Foundation research has kind of long validated that. And so the more of those companies that we can see starting and growing here, the more new jobs and economic dynamism that will be created as a result. And then thirdly, the need to plant some flags in some specific technology or subsector specialties where Indiana can thrive, we can make bets, and we can build economic assets against. But we need to do all of that through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, doing coalition building, stakeholder convening, and then statewide impact. So I'll delve into some of the in those specific areas, some of the things that we learned. One is, as I already referenced, over 184,000 Hoosiers working in the tech industry. One thing that may be a surprise to some of those who read the news headlines and may feel like that it's a central Indiana phenomenon, it's actually not. 60% of the tech workforce actually lives and works outside of central Indiana. You can see the dotted line there at the bottom, which represents the 40% that are in central Indiana. To put in context what it means to the state, what that workforce means to the state, it's almost $700 million in annual wages. And if you put that in terms of property taxes, actually for every 10,000 new tech workers that we add, as we bend that curve to grow more, that's $700 million in annual wages. And you can see the personal tax contribution just from income tax and sales taxes as well. So there's a real business case to be built here for growing this tech economy and attracting more talent into the state. That brings in the question not only of companies that are located here, but as we've seen in COVID, the mass shift to remote work, and much of which still persists today. And you'll also see manifest in the policy agenda that Jennifer shares. There's a real opportunity about remote work and the attraction of remote workers, whether they are working for an Indiana company or a company elsewhere. Again, couple that with the financial upside of having them live here or live somewhere else. And there's a real business proposition that Indiana needs to consider. And there are some opportunities from a policy standpoint for how we could put Indiana in best position to compete there. On the startup and scale up front, I just want to share some news that was startling to me. This is a new data set that's never been seen or shared before, but we wanted to understand how are we doing in the way of starting young companies and then scaling them up to meaningful employer size. This is an area where we need to do better. You can see here that we're trending in the right direction of companies that have started and since 2010 and still exist. We're seeing growth there, but at the top end, those companies are not translating into large employers at the rate that we want them to. And so this is just again, in a spirit of transparency and collaboration, wanted to share this insight with those of you here today, both executives of companies and legislative leaders that this is an area, as we want to see the job opportunities increase and the economy continue to grow, we're going to need more companies that break through out of the small business category and into bigger employer ranks. You can see here that just 4.4% have 20 plus employees. The vast majority of them are staying in this kind of a small category. So we need to continue to see more of them break through. I referenced technology and sub-industry specialization, so I won't go further than that, but that's kind of I think the important overview to provide as what we've seen from this most latest batch of research. And so Jennifer, with that, I'll turn it over to you to share what's on the policy agenda for this legislative session.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for all the work that you and everyone at TechPoint does to help the industry. So definitely could not do it without you, and happy to have you in such a key role with ITIA. I want to give just a little bit of a background on ITIA for those of you who may not be familiar, some of our legislative guests. So we're the statewide association representing technology-driven companies and partners seeking to elevate the role that the tech community plays in shaping Indiana's public policy. We launched in 2018 and have now about 100 tech company members from across the state, many of whom are with us today. So as I said, our mission is to give Indiana's tech companies a collective voice at the State House so that we can work with legislators and state leaders and help inform them on issues that impact our companies so that together we can strengthen the industry and strengthen jobs, income, and quality of life across the state. So our board is made up of 20 folks. Our officers were really instrumental in the launching of the association. So our chairman, David Becker from First Internet Bank, our vice chair, John Wexler from Launch Fishers and the IoT Lab, our treasurer, Christopher Day, Toph, as you may know him from Demand Jump, and our secretary is Brent Oakley, CEO of Vibenomics. And then, as I said, we have 20 board members in total. We added a few just this past year, and we are very excited to have them all be a part. We have 4 policy committees around the 4 things that are the kind of top priority and drivers for the tech industry. So capital, talent, place, and equity. Equity is a new committee that launched last year. And in the first few years since our founding, ITIA has been involved in advancing several important policies for the industry at the State House and working with many of you and others. We are grateful for the legislative support that we've received. And also I see we have a couple folks from IEDC on, folks in various agencies, Department of Education, Workforce Development, we've worked alongside. And so a few of those things that we've accomplished over just our first few years include transferability and expansion of the BCI tax credits, increased funding for the 21 fund, record investments in the expansion of high-speed broadband, funding for computer science education. And as y'all know, 2021 was the goal for all schools to be required to have computer science, expansion of CTE, policies to improve cybersecurity for state and local government entities, tax incentives for data centers, and many more. So now we are turning our focus to what we know is a short session, 2022, and we have about 20 companies represented on each policy committee. So we have subgroups of folks who work throughout the summer to develop our agenda items. There's a long form version that you all have by email, but I'm just going to go through a couple of the highlights here. So for our capital committee, our goal this year is to focus on really getting more funds into Indiana-based funds and companies. So as Mike mentioned, while VC investment in Indiana companies is increasing, and we're certainly happy about that, our ranking for venture capital activity declined compared to other states, and we also rank 42nd out of 50 states for entrepreneurship. So we're incredibly supportive of the investment that the state made into the Next Level Fund in 2017, which allocated $250 million to make investments into both venture funds, it's a fund of fund program, so into funds, but also direct investments into companies. We want to work to make sure that those dollars are deployed as quickly as possible and that they're directed to funds and companies that are based in Indiana, therefore growing jobs, growing wealth, growing the future of Indiana business. We also want to focus on ways that we can incentivize or encourage more venture capital funds in Indiana that obviously would be likely to invest heavily in Indiana companies. So next to our talent committee, our focus is on talent attraction and development. I should say Michael Angelier chairs this committee and has been incredibly helpful over the years in developing these policy priorities. So there's a real opportunity to attract high value tech talent to our state, particularly workers who are now remote and can live anywhere, but we can capture that tax revenue, income tax revenue. So according to a June 2021 remote worker survey by Indiana-based Make My Move, more than 30 million workers are now permanently remote, and nearly 1/3 of those plan to move within the next 18 months. We want Indiana to capitalize on this opportunity. We want to incentivize employers to offer more internship and apprenticeship programs in tech that we can help build our talent pipeline right here in Indiana. For our place committee, we'd like to see a continued focus on broadband deployment across the state. We're excited about the funding that we've already seen from the state and federal levels over the last few years. We support a focus on fiber deployment to improve connectivity across the state. We'll be working on that this session. We'll also continue to advocate to support Indiana's high-performing certified tech parks that are supporting regional entrepreneurial activity and startup creation all across the state. And then finally, for our equity committee, we want to applaud Governor Holcomb for his focus on identifying disparities in state programs and his appointment of Kara Herring to serve as the new cabinet level equity, inclusion, and opportunity officer. We had the chance to meet with her. It's very encouraging. We would like to support a particular focus on bridging opportunity gaps in state job training and workforce programs, including next level jobs, to reach more women and underserved populations. So again, that's the quick version. You will have emailed the long version. I'm happy to talk about any of the specifics as we go, but I think the reason most of us are here is we want to hear from the legislative leaders themselves as to what they'll be focusing on and priorities for each caucus across any issue. So I'll go ahead and introduce our first guest. We're really pleased and appreciative to have Speaker of the House, Todd Houston, who represents District 37 with us today, which includes portions of Hamilton County and the city of Fisher. So Speaker Houston, I turn it over to you to tell us about House Republicans' plans.
Well, first, thanks, Jen. It's great to be here with y'all. And I was kind of chuckling because you kind of stole my thunder as you walked through the accomplishments, but it was an awesome reminder. You had a couple that I had forgotten about. And it's been, since we've been working with Jen and Mike and the team here, and I'll go back kind of 4 years ago. We're now back almost 5 years. I think, the commitment that we've made in the General Assembly of the tech community has been significant. I think it's paid off. I think as Mike noted, there's the type of growth that we've seen, and we are very pleased. I think we all recognize anymore that almost every company is a tech company with the way the economy is changing, and it's great to see the vibrancy in the marketplace all across the state, and that's been something we are very, very focused on. One that wasn't up on the board, I give this group a lot of credit to helping us think about was, we invested $500 million in the Ready Grant program, because we understand quality of place and attracting people, particularly young people. As many of you know, I've talked about before, I have college age kids, and I certainly want them and kids, our talented kids throughout the state to stay in Indiana and to make Indiana more attractive. And we're seeing that $500 million investment look like it's going to leverage about $14 billion in in philanthropic and private investment to just make communities all across our state. All 92 communities have applied. So y'all have brought that front and center to us, and we've listened and recognized the importance of it. As Jen noted, it's going to be a short session. With each passing day, I hope it's shorter. But I guess the one thing I'd highlight on the list that was just focused on is we are talking about how we update our economic development tools. We're in an extraordinarily competitive time right now, where you're seeing a transformation in the economy and in areas like energy, manufacturing, automotive, and we know we have to compete. And the tech's right in the middle of that too. We're competing right now on significant deals in these industries, and we know that it's a different marketplace. I mean, and we have such a unique opportunity right now because of the strong fiscal shape we're in as a state, and how attractive we are from a tax and regulatory positioning. So we are going to update. We're in the process trying to work with IEDC and others to figure out what the right update to our tools are to kind of sharpen our skills and update the toolbox. So that's going to be one that I don't have all the answers yet to. We're working on, but we'll continue to make investments. We really do believe this is a very unique time for us. We had the fastest growing population of any state that touches us in the last 10 years, with the lowest unemployment rate, with the highest participation rate. People have found out the good reasons to do business in Indiana, but we got to put our foot on the gas pedal and just absolutely ensure that we take advantage of this unique time to attract even more businesses and more population to our state. So with that, Jen, I'll turn it over to the others to speak.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and make the other introductions, and then I think they mentioned if you have questions, put them in the chat, and then we'll work through questions hopefully we'll have time. So representing the House Democrat Caucus, we have Representative Carrie Hamilton, who's the Assistant Democratic Leader and represents District 87, which includes the northern part of Marion County. So Representative Hamilton, thank you for being here. What do we expect from House Democrats?
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and thanks, Mike, for the invitation today. It's really great to be here with your organization. First, I just want to share a little background. So I've been in the environmental field for 25 years, but starting this summer, for the first time, I'm working for a tech company. I work for a climate tech company, a 3-year-old Swedish tech startup with about 40 employees. A month ago, we announced our Series A funding, and I'm helping to build out North America and Canada. And I'm glad to say that 4 of our 6 US employees are right here in Central Indiana. Hope to help increase that number if we can find the right talent. So today, different from other times that I've learned from your organization, I have a little more perspective. So a couple points to that. One, I've seen very much firsthand recently, something that I think was a priority for you last year, and maybe again this year, but not lifted up, and that is the nonstop flights, international flights. I think that's really important to help us compete and be part of the global tech economy. I also want to lift up your focus on entrepreneurial piece and being a place where small businesses can start and thrive in the tech sector. That's so very important. I was really impressed with the statistics, the hiring statistics, the numbers of employees we have and how quickly we're growing. And I very much believe the state has an important role to play to help continue that trajectory so we can have a diverse and thriving economy well into the future. Something Speaker Houston lifted up that I want to lift up as well, and that's the READY grants. I was really glad to be able to support that in the budget this year. I know that's true for, I think, all House Democrats as well, to be able to leverage those local dollars and put a lot of state money to support quality of life. Investments in our communities. And that's something I spent a lot of time on at the State House since I was elected in 2016, in particular, supporting trails infrastructure. Obviously we don't have mountains, we don't have oceans, but we do have rivers and woods and ways to get around that people enjoy. So trails, greenways, and access to the outdoors from our very own homes. I think is really important and helps draw people to our state when they see that we have that infrastructure. So I 2 years ago launched the Indiana Legislative Trails Caucus. We were able to get the first ever legislatively directed pool of dollars to trails this year, $60 million. Adding to Governor Holcomb's original investment a couple of years ago, creating the Next Level Trails program. And I'm proud of those dollars. They go to invest in quality of life and public health and local economic development that will help strengthen our ability to attract knowledge workers to Indiana. I also want to thank you for your support in recent years for clean and renewable energy. I think that's also really important. Indiana has an opportunity to be part of the solution to the climate change challenge we're facing. And as a manufacturing state, we are now working proactively. I think I saw that Representative Karakoff is on here. He and I worked together on a bill. I co-authored a bill with him this past year to create the Electric Vehicle Product Commission, which we kick off next week, hoping to really help our auto manufacturing sector pivot as quickly as we can so that we're building the EVs of the future, maintaining those great jobs, and hopefully growing those great jobs in our state. And I think what goes hand in hand with that we haven't yet worked on, that I hope we will, is making sure that as we're part of the solution to creating these electrified vehicles, that right here in Indiana, we're also creating a more renewable grid. So I hope you'll continue to support that. We've got work to do there. We could certainly also be building wind turbines and solar panels. Again, great manufacturing state. Let's leverage that skill set that we have. We're making great progress on broadband, as Bill mentioned earlier, thanks both to state and federal support. Two issues that I want to lift up that are very important to the House Democrats. And Jennifer, give me a heads up if I need to start to wrap things up. But one is healthcare. We've been working, put a lot of effort the last few years into lifting up ideas to make healthcare more affordable for Hoosiers and for employers. Unfortunately, we're not doing a great job in our state for many reasons, but it's time to make progress there. As we've seen salaries and wages increase, a lot of those increases are being eaten by significantly increased healthcare costs for Hoosiers, and we have work to do there. Along with that goes public health investment. Indiana in recent years has been rated 49th worst for investments in our public health infrastructure. And we've seen during the COVID crisis how our county health departments and our entire public health network has not always been up to the task, despite wonderful people working very hard to try to help us get through this. So we have a lot of work to do there, both direct public health investment, but also helping to make sure those dollars lift up Hoosiers from the perspective of high smoking rates and all of the things we need to do, the challenges we have, obesity, et cetera, in Indiana. There are many ways we can start to tackle that, but we've got to think about it holistically so we can make more progress on public health. And then finally, again, on behalf of the House Democrat Caucus, and very near and dear to my heart, is both childcare costs and early learning, in particular, providing pre-K for all Hoosier children. I'm going to focus more on that. Early learning is a crucial investment that most states have made to a much more significant level than we have still in Indiana. And I think with the strong fiscal situation that we're in right now, as Speaker Houston lifted up, we have an opportunity to make progress there this year. So I hope we will talk about that during session. And then I will touch for just a quick more moment on childcare. We have seen during this pandemic, especially, even less access to very expensive childcare, which is taking people out of the workforce. It's hurting families. I think there's a role to be played there. We'll see what happens at the federal level. We may get support with the next infrastructure package if that comes down. So we'll have to be on top of that and see if there's work still to be done at the state level. And then finally, Jennifer, I just want to lift up and thank your organization for your work on equity. It's very, very important and appreciated, certainly by myself and the House Democrats, and however we can be helpful in that regard, I know we will be. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hamilton. And I rest assured, the long form version of our agenda and priorities includes direct flights, electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, renewable clean energy. So it's all there. We'll make sure you get the full copy. Oh, and maybe Molly Gillespie, who's the star of ITIA, maybe you could drop the link to the ITIA membership application and Representative Hamilton can see if her company might be interested in joining. Okay, next we will move over to the Senate. We have Senator Chip Perfect, who's the chair of the Senate Commerce and Technology Committee, who represents District 43, which currently includes all of Ohio and Jennings counties and portions of Bartholomew, Dearborn, Decatur, Jackson, and Ripley. Southeast Indiana, that district is certainly changing a bit. Senator Perfect, we're really glad to have you here. I turn it over to you. Oh, can we unmute?
Yeah. How about now?
Perfect.
Well, I said before, I'm a little intimidated being on a being an analog guy in a digital world here. Ironically, I'm going to probably go in a different direction than the previous speakers. I think they said a lot of good things and it sort of gives you a summary, but you're going to end up with an assignment for me. So I am the chair of Commerce and Technology. And I got to tell you, on the one hand, I met with Jennifer the other day, and we were talking about it. On the one hand, as an entrepreneur myself and someone who's started a lot of businesses and share a lot of the concerns you have about the environment for business and how we help business move forward. And as Speaker Houston said, every business now is really in some form or fashion part of the tech world, or you can't survive. Because one of the common things I say, and I said to you the other day, Jennifer, is we are in a society that is changing at an unprecedented rate. In fact, as I like to say, as an older person, never in my lifetime has the rate of change been as fast as it is right now. And in many ways, that's great. But I have to tell you that generally speaking, as a business person in the legislature is not fast moving. They really have a hard time keeping up with the rate of change. And in my opinion, putting things in a position that allow you to move forward. I sometimes find it frustrating that as chairman of the Commerce and Technology Committee, that a lot of bills don't come my way. But I told Jennifer the other day, that's actually probably a good thing, because probably the thing you want the most is for us to leave you alone. When we stay out of your business, you have the opportunity to innovate and advance and move us forward. And I was in a few meetings last week and something came to my mind, and this is where the assignment for your group comes from. I listened to your your 3 points of priority, and I want to add a fourth for you to consider, and that is tech solutions. When we look at many of the problems that the legislature is dealing with, it's folks in your organization, they're going to have the forward-looking solutions that we need to help solve those problems. Many of the challenges that we face in the legislature have existed for a long time, and then they're made even more complicated by the rate of change that we have. You guys live in that world. You guys live in an area where innovation and changes are embraced, and that's not the strength of the legislature. So we need all of you to come forward with those forward-looking solutions that say tech offers the opportunity for doing things in a different way. And in many ways, my opinion is the government isn't changing fast enough. The legislature isn't moving quick enough to be able to put you in a position to have the success that you need. And we need your help in finding the solutions that set you free and let you move on. We cannot look backwards for solutions to the issues that we have moving forward. In my opinion, we can only move forward. So we need your help to figure out some of these really more complicated challenges, because I hear a lot of discussion, frankly, about the way we've always done it and the solutions of the past, and I don't think that's going to get it done. So we need some fresh perspective. We need some ideas, not just as it relates to the businesses that you all are in, but has been talked about today, the challenges of whole in Indiana, making it a great place to live, making it a great place for people to be here. How do we move the workforce forward? We need new ideas because the world's changed enough that I don't think the old ones are going to work. Help us move that forward. If you have a brilliant idea that can come through my committee, I'd love to see it. If your idea involves more government, yeah, don't bring it to my committee. So good luck to you. I'm glad to see that so many in your industry are engaged because we need you.
Senator Perfect. Jen, can I jump in for just 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you've probably inspired a lot of folks on the call to take that challenge seriously and think about it. Can you spotlight two clarifying questions? Are you thinking predominantly of policy specific solutions or government delivery specific solutions? And then second, can you give a couple examples of the problem spaces that you're confronting so that we can be applying our creative juices to them?
Sure, I'll give that a chance. As I said before, as a business person, most of the time I come away from the legislature saying, stop helping, you know what I mean? So we tend to stick our noses in places that I don't think they need to be. However, a perfect example of what you're talking about was already mentioned by Representative Hamilton and Speaker Houston, and that is we have some really big challenges relative to energy, how it's generated, how we're using it, and becoming greener in our solutions, etc. I had an interesting meeting the other day with a group that are big electrical users, and it's clear that I don't think that we're looking to the future about energy policy and also energy innovations is really what I'm talking about. It really should be the innovations policy allowing innovations to take place that are going to solve that problem, not the other way around. And then I would also sort of say, for example, on the issue of broadband, we did a lot of work on broadband. It concerns me that we're making big investment, and the gentleman from AT&T was talking about what they're doing in investment. I think that's all great, but it worries me sometimes that we are investing in technology of the past, not necessarily, are we this close from breakthroughs that are going to change the paradigm for energy, for internet, for many of those things. And if we're that close, we're not going to see it in the legislature. You're going to see it before we do, and you need to help us steer in that direction. Is that a little bit of the answer like you're talking about?
Yeah.
So
thanks for the color commentary, Senator.
Yeah. If I keep talking, I'm just going to get myself more in trouble. So we'll go to the next person.
That's great. And that last comment you mentioned, Senator Perfect, reminded me of something that Mayor Fadness has said. I won't say on what topic, but he doesn't want to be the guy who bought the last VCR. So I understand where you're coming from. So now
I just want to say that my wedding video is on beta, and probably half of you don't even know what that is. So
I do, but yeah. Probably half the call doesn't. Okay, so Senate Democrats, we have Senator Fatty Cadora here with us today representing District 30, which is part of Hamilton and Marion County. So Senator Cadora, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you everyone for having me today. I'm honored to be in the presence of many of you, including my esteemed colleagues in the House and the Senate. I'll be brief. So my relation with the world of innovation and technology goes back to 2000, when I earned my bachelor's in computer science, and 2007 when I earned my master's degree in computer science. And in the last 4 years, I served as a chief innovation officer for a couple of firms, including private accounting firm here in Indianapolis. So, and I served under Governor Pence under FSSA, the Family and Social Services Administration, as the senior manager of data analytics for FSSA as we were rolling out the Healthy Indiana Plan 2.0. So the world of innovation, technology, data analytics, predictive modeling, and artificial intelligence, and looking at the future is something that I dabbled with for the last probably 21 years. Even though I played different roles in finance and healthcare and other things. So this is an area that is near and dear to my heart. Couple of things in terms of policy-wise. I think the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership published a report that reviewed our workforce development data. I think they hired the American Enterprise Institute to review our data as far as workforce development in Indiana. And there were many good positive spotlights in that report talking about that we are among the top 5 or 10% in the nation as far as creating jobs, especially for small businesses between 0 and 5 employees. However, there were other areas that we ranked extremely low in the bottom 10 in terms of workforce development as it relates to technology, investments, STEM field, and lost productivity due to lagging investments in advanced manufacturing and advanced technology across the state. In every sector, whether healthcare, finance, education, you name it, there are unbelievable, amazing opportunities for automation, for advanced technologies. We're not only competing with the Midwest, we're competing with the rest of the nation, and we're competing with China and with other countries, developed countries across the globe. But also there are many opportunities for collaboration locally, nationally, and globally. I think that's one thing we've learned from technology, that there are no borders and no boundaries by which we can collaborate to solve many human problems confronting humanity. I will be brief to maybe highlight a couple of things I'm working on for next session that relate to innovation and technology that tie with one of your policy priorities. So as you know, over 45 counties in the state of Indiana lost population, or people moved out. And I'm very concerned about our rural communities. I'm very concerned about that their taxes are going to go up. Well, the taxes are not going to go up, but the tax burden, when you have less people living in a community, would require more people to chip in to provide the same level or quality of services. So if we lose talent, and if we continue to lose population from different places of the state, it becomes a burden on the entire state to respond and to find solutions that can be helpful. So one of my pieces of legislation for next session is to try a pilot program that could potentially be a statewide program. I'm working with Senator Mishler on this, to deal with the brain drain problem, especially in the STEM field. How can we come up with a program, whether it's a tax credit or a loan forgiveness program, to attract Hoosiers to stay in Indiana after graduation or after graduating from high school? If they get a bachelor's or master's degrees in a STEM field and they stay for 10 years, can we explore loan forgiveness or tax credit programs? And can we do something similar to folks in the STEM field from outside of the state of Indiana? If we can't produce enough people to be part of the workforce, then we have no other option except to bring people from outside of the state. So that will be one of my pieces of legislation as it relates to dealing with incentivizing people to support our tech sector. Representative Hamilton touched on many of the social issues that impact our workforce. A business leader told me in Indianapolis, a Republican business leader told me, he said, social justice is good for business. And I said, what do you mean? He said, if your workforce is constantly confronted with lack of affordable housing, confronted with issues, mental health issues, transportation issues, childcare issues, then it's going to prohibit your employees from being fully productive at your workforce. So we're no longer talking about Republican versus Democratic ideas. We're no longer talking about liberal versus conservative ideas. We're talking about workforce needs that will help people live dignified lives so that they can be productive at their workplace. So I intend to work with my colleagues in every shape, way, or form. This is, I hope, maybe today is not the day to mention this, but I'll go ahead at the risk of exposing an idea that I'm working on. But, I talked to several of my colleagues on the House and the Senate side to create a problem-solving caucus, to bring Republicans and Democrats together to look at problems that can be solved that are nonpartisan issues. I'll give you one final example, very practical example of how we are limited in using technology. look at the state budget. I think that last budget had almost unanimous support, Democrats and Republicans, the first time almost in 20 years. It was a very good budget. However, we don't share data appropriately across state agencies. So you're investing $20+ billion almost a year, but look at FSSA, ISDH, and other agencies, and we still have red tapes, even though when I was at FSSA, Governor Pence signed an executive order to remove these red tapes between agencies. We still cannot collaborate. Think about it this way. If I have a data analytics approach to layer the data of where the state budget is being invested, zip code by zip code, county by county, city by city across the state, and layer that with poverty, economic investment, tax rates, all of that, you're going to immediately and visually be able to see the alignment between the budget and where we're growing or not growing in the state of Indiana. So I think removing barriers internally is critical. And second, as my respected colleagues, especially Senator Chip, I firmly believe that the private sector can play a critical role in innovation. And we've seen it through the history of our country where innovation led to improvement in government services. And sometimes government invested in private businesses to develop solutions when it was desperately needed. The internet is one of those examples. So I think there's a mutual interest for us to work collaboratively as one team to make critical investments in broadband, advanced manufacturing, and all of that. Remove policies that could restrict your ability to be creative, and then take politics out of investments and truly focus on data and how we can compete locally, nationally, on a global level. So thank you for this opportunity, and we'll be more than happy to join my colleagues in answering any questions.
Thanks, Senator. I think, Mike, I'll turn it over to you. Do you want to moderate questions?
Yeah, sure can. Thank you. Thank all four of you for the thoughtful remarks and all the work you're doing in preparation for this session and for sessions past. This has probably been the most kind of robust, topically relevant, remarks that we've had in one of these discussions. So thank you all for participating. I saw a comment in here. Joe Cudby said, and I think this was in response for you, Senator Perfect. One example, state acquisition policy that might favor or at least not disqualify new startups. New companies need customers that will pay and provide feedback. So I think that's aimed specifically at new companies that could be where the government could be an early customer.
Hey, Mike, I'm just going to jump in since my name was mentioned there and give you another example after I've thought about it a little bit. And I'm surprised nobody mentioned this. Legislators, you mentioned it a little bit, and I commend you. It's exactly what we're talking about your intern programs and where you're bringing people in and giving them actual work experience. And in my opinion, educating them. Probably the biggest example of what I'm talking about is old solutions for new problems. Where we need your help is on the side of education. None of our institutions, in my mind, and I'm going to say something here that's going to get me in trouble probably, are more the way we've always done it than education. It's trying to innovate, but not as quickly as we need. You guys know what the target is, so we certainly need, help from what works in your intern programs. We need to innovate our education faster and hit the target a little bit better than I think we are. And I'm surprised nobody mentioned that, but in your case, you did relative to internship. So that's another area where I think it's in order to us to have the paradigm shift that we need in education, it's going to be very tech centric. It's going to have to be delivered in a different way, and we need your help to get there.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's an area where you'll see TechPoint focus in the coming years is getting tech employers more active and involved as in a leadership position and defining what the tech jobs are, what the competency and skill requirements are. And so that way we can adapt our education systems and even non-traditional training programs, et cetera, and certification requirements at a faster pace. If we can have the most aligned, if we can have the most aligned workforce pathways in the country, Indiana will win. We just had a question that came in and said the recently passed and signed federal infrastructure bills packed with technology initiatives from EV incentives to sustainable energy. Who is monitoring the use of that money as it comes to Indiana?
I think all eyes are looking at the speaker.
Yeah, we'll partner with the administration on that. Obviously, where those dollars, where we have an opportunity to direct those dollars. Some of those are passed through. Some of those we have the opportunity to direct, and we'll be the General Assembly and the administration will be collaboratively working together on that.
Speaker Houston, to parlay on that, are there any particular priorities as far as the federal funding, those federal funding programs, that where you would have us kind of prioritize our focus in partnership with you to make sure that Indiana can take full advantage?
Well, Mike, I want to be fair to this. They passed that bill, and the money comes in different tranches or different periods of time. And one of the things, and then they always, kind of promulgate different rules around them. So some of it's still a TBD, but look, I mean, obviously around the basic infrastructure, roads and sewers and water to, as noted, EV and some environmental and energy policy. We'll be taking a look at all that. These are things that, we want to be aggressive, obviously in EV and supporting EV and supporting the changes that's taking place automotively across our state to get EV companies to invest in it. Somebody mentioned charging stations. That's obviously something we're looking at. On energy policy, look, I mean, we're going to, I said yesterday in a speech, I mean, we're focused on having a energy policy that does three things. It's focused on reliability, because every business and every person wants when they hit that light switch for it to come on. Cost, because right now we're not where we need to be from a cost perspective, and realistic sustainability. There are too many states and frankly countries and leaders in our country who have we all want to get to green fast and we want to get to green smart, but we need to get to green responsibly. And we're going to have an energy policy that does that, an energy policy that finds that balance that's based in reality and not on theory. And we're going to make sure that we use those funds wisely to get us down that path.
Great. Thank you. And thank you again, all. And I also want to do a thank you to Adam Berry and the Indiana Chamber. You all have been great partners in this as well, both thought partners on policy agenda and then also in our communication and work with State House colleagues. So Adam, I see you're on as well. Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Two quick public service announcements as we wrap, and then Jen, I'll hand it over to you for close. As many of you are closing in on strong years and thinking about two things, probably. One of them is, how do I give back? How do I make an impact in our communities? There's an opportunity coming up in partnership with United Way. You'll see the slide up here, a holiday snack pack where you can volunteer. It's an event we're doing with United Way of Central Indiana on Wednesday, December 8th. Great opportunity for your teams to give back to the community this holiday season. You'll find a registration link in the chat that you can learn more. And then the second is, as you're thinking about, as you're going into the beginning of the year, on December 1st, the Mira Awards nominations and applications will open up. The deadline for submission is January 21st. And this is an awesome opportunity for you to spotlight your company, individuals in your companies, your successes, help to rally your team around the great things you've done. So I'd encourage you to check out the categories. Again, there will be a link in the chat for you to see what the award categories are this year and see if there are any that you'd be a good fit for. So with those two public service announcements, Jen, I'll turn it over to you first for close.
Thanks. I just want to say thanks again to everyone, state legislators and state agency representatives, our partners, ITIA members, TechPoint, for joining us today. We really look forward to continuing to work with you to strengthen and advance Indiana's tech and innovation economy here in Indiana. So Molly did put the link in the chat. If your company is not a member and you want to join, it's there. Visit us at indianatechnology.org. Follow us on Twitter at Indiana Innovate. We also started a new monthly show where we showcase some of our members and their companies and the innovations that they are undertaking. And you can watch that at indianainnovates.com. Thank you all.